Hare Krishna. It's good to see familiar faces again after a 2 week break. We live in a world where everything is unpredictable. And when things are unpredictable, we take unpredictable steps also. So we had to take an unpredictable step that after 6, 7, 8 weeks of meeting every week, we will have to take a 2 week break. But it is good because it is for the safety of everyone. And thank you for being here. Um, it is not easy in the current pandemic situation to make decisions to be in person. So very grateful for all of you to be here. So today we will be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 16. So those of you who have phones and want to pull up the verse, they can. Otherwise, we have some Bhagavad Gitas at the back of the room, and you can grab one from there also. So chapter 6, verse 16. Let's get started. Natyashrastastu yogastina sti na chaikanta manashnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva cha arjuna. Anybody else? Natyas asnatastu yogosti na chaikanta manasnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva cha arjuna. Translation. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Regulation of diet and sleep is recommended herein for the yogis. Too much eating means eating more than is required to keep the body and soul together. There is no need for men to eat animals because there is an ample supply of grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk. Such simple foodstuff is considered to be in mode of goodness according to Bhagavad Gita. Animal food is for those in the mode of ignorance. Therefore, those who indulge in animal food, drinking, smoking, and eating food which is not first offered to Krishna, will suffer sinful reactions because of eating only polluted things. Bhunjate te tvam agam papa ye pachanti atma karana. Anyone who eats for sense pleasure or cooks for himself, not offering his food to Krishna, eats only sin. One who eats sin and eats more than is allotted to him cannot execute perfect yoga. It is best that one eat only the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna. A person in Krishna consciousness does not eat anything which is not first offered to Krishna. Therefore, only the Krishna conscious person can attain perfection in yoga practice. Nor can one who artificially abstains from eating, manufacturing his own personal process of fasting, practice yoga. The Krishna conscious person observes fasting as it is recommended in the scriptures. He does not fast or eat more than is required, and he is thus competent to perform yoga practice. One who eats more than required will dream very much while sleeping, and he must consequently sleep more than is required. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One who sleeps more than 6 hours out of 24 is certainly influenced by the mode of ignorance. A person in the mode of ignorance is lazy and prone to sleep a great deal. Such a person cannot perform yoga. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vatamscha Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Anusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatriyubhasya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. So today I picked up this topic as I was very inspired listening to His Grace Amarendra Prabhu over the weekend in one of the recent classes he gave, which was based on some very practical instructions, and it related to this topic of our spiritual practices, primarily offering the food as well as our own bhajan. So, when reading Bhagavad Gita or listening to any classes by senior devotees, it is always wonderful when we hear, when we speak, when we sing, when we read anything that helps us remember the Supreme Lord. So we know that the actual duty for any jiva is to remember the Supreme Lord. That is our eternal duty. But when our mind is very passionate and it is also ignorant most of the times, it is also restless most of the times, then we have to engage in work of this world to calm down all the restlessness, all the passion of the mind, and somehow we dovetail that in the service of Krishna. Yeah. So by hook or crook, it is said sometimes, right? We have to do certain things. In the same way for devotees, by hook or crook, we have to somehow fix our mind to the lotus feet of Krishna. So, and lotus feet of Krishna in not just any mode, in Vishuddha Sattva Guna, which is pure mode of goodness. Yeah. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 4, chapter 30, and purport of the 24th verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that it has been said, Grita Maya Guna Vigrahaya, that the Lord accepts three kinds of bodies. And we were touching upon this in our Sunday class today, that those three kinds of bodies are, we have a Sunday school student sitting here in the front bench who can, yes, Ishan, the three Murti that we were talking about. Shiva, Brahma, and Mahesh. Oh, sorry, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And for what purpose do they appear? For the purposes of creating, maintaining, and annihilating. Yes? Annihilating what? Material cosmic manifestations that exist around us, right? So those are the three predominating deities of the material universe. And they're called what kind of avatars? Guna avatars. They are the Guna avatars, right? And there are many kinds of incarnations. Mataji was teaching the children in our Sunday class today about Dasha avatars. So there are many kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the adults cannot answer these questions, they better join Sunday school. So, hint. So there are different incarnations, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh for this material world, right? And out of these three, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva accept what kind of bodies? Transcendental? Material bodies. Yes. They accept the material bodies. But what about Lord Vishnu? Transcendental body. He does not accept a material body. So that's why Lord Vishnu is known as Vishuddha Sattva. That's why we are talking about mode of goodness, pure mode of goodness. That's Vishuddha Sattva Guna coming from Lord Vishnu. And his existence is completely free from any sort of contamination of the material modes of nature, which everybody else is affected by. Yeah. And what are the three modes of material nature? Yes, Ryan? Yes, because we studied that also today. Those adults who are not raising their hands, next Sunday class, right here. Because all the front benchers are kids from the Govinda Vidya class are answering all these questions. So one should therefore not think that Lord Vishnu is in the same category with Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. In Shvetashvara Upanishad, the definition of God is given, 6.8. And it is stated, Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. He does not possess bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. That's the definition given of the Supreme Person. Therefore, we as jivas, right? We are souls. We always say we are not this body, we are soul. So the duty of the soul is there is no other activity that is to be done in this world except remembering cricket, Krishna. No other duty. And there is a beautiful verse that is given in Shastras. And in this verse, a question is being asked. The question is very interesting. The question is, who is the most sinful person? Yes. Oh, you. We all are. But we also have an answer of who is not. So the verse, and it's in a poetic form. So just to set the context, in this verse, there are two sides. Just like a coin has two sides, there's a heads and a tail. And depending on how you flip it and how it lands, somebody else wins. So these two sides are presenting their own opinion. This is an opinion. This is not a shastric injunction that in a way that is coming from Krishna himself. It is an opinion, but this is a poetic verse. It says, Kechid danti gunhin jano jaganya, kechid dadanti dhanhin jano jaganya. So, as I said, there are two sides, there are two forms of opinions. And this one side is saying that the most sinful people are those who are born poor in this world. Very interesting. They are without wealth and they are being called sinful. Why? Because they say they have been sinful in the past, because of which the negative reactions they got resulted, because of their activities, they resulted in becoming poor in this life. We know that how law of karma works. So someone might say, yes, it makes sense. Yeah. But these are just opinions. Okay. Kechid Vedanti. Now, some people the other side, their opinion is that, by the way, the word Jaganya means sin. Okay. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, those of you who have it in front of you, you can open up chapter 14, verse number 18, and there is the same word. The same word is in Bhagavad Gita 14.18, Jaganya. Let's see what it says over there. Anybody wants to read? Yes, Ryan. Yes, so Jaganya Guna Vrittistha Adho Gajanti Tamasha. That those who are sinful, they go where? America? Hellish planets. Okay, just checking. So some say that those who are sinful, how do we identify them? Those who are poor in this life, they may have been sinful in the past life. So it's a hypothetical statement. But what's the other side saying? Kechit dadanti gunahina. Jano jaganya. So those who are bereft of good character, they are actually the most sinful. Yeah? Why? Because they have been sinful in the past. The life they are born with bad character, those impressions from the past carry on. Yeah. What is our body made of? That's the gross body. And what is the subtle body? Also ego. Yes, correct. So when we are into negative activities, they are detrimental to our consciousness, to our thought process. So one side's opinion is that those who are sinful, they are born poor. The other side is saying that by that, those who have had bad character, yeah, they have been sinful in the past and they're sinful. That's why they have bad character and they're born like that. So in this life, by looking at one who has had bad character, you can understand who is sinful, who has been sinful in the past. How do we know? What is the actual truth? Whose side should we listen to? Whose side should we take? Those who say that those who are sinful because those who are poor in this life because they were sinful in the past, please raise your hands. So, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And those who think that those who had bad character in the past and they are, because of that they are sinful or those who were sinful in the last life, they have bad character in this life, please raise your hands. Okay. So those who did not raise the hands, they have a third option, which Srila Vyasadeva is telling us. But so Srila Vyasadeva is saying, after studying and all the Puranas, compiling all the Vedas, let's see what Srila Vyasadeva has to say. It says that Vyaso Vadatya Khil Veda Purana Veta Narayan Smaran Heen Jano Jaganya. So he's saying that the actual sinful people are those who don't remember Narayan, those who don't remember Sri Krishna. That is the actual test of who has been sinful in the past. Those who cannot remember Ramayana or Krishna. So now we have a third camp. Who all agree with the third camp? Some are still paying attention. Okay. So you can see that it is not the poverty, it is not the bad character that is the obstacle in the path of bhakti. Yeah. But by seeing who is remembering the Supreme Lord and who is not remembering the Supreme Lord, we can understand who has been sinful in the past and who has not been. Yeah. So we all have an opportunity to remember Krishna by studying Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, by associating with devotees, by worshipping the deities every day in our homes, in the temple, by hearing Hari Katha every day from senior Vaishnavas, by being very absorbed, by being very attentive, sitting down with one pointed attention when we chant our japa. Yeah. So the quality of our Krishna consciousness depends on the quality of chanting our japa. Sometimes devotees say that, oh, I don't feel nourished. I don't feel nourished enough. I feel spiritually weak. I don't think I'm getting what I want. Yeah. But if you go deeper into it, you just understand there are three primary reasons. There are more reasons, but there are three primary reasons why one can feel spiritually weak. The first one, as Mataji right pointedly said, the most important one is the quality of our japa. Either we are not chanting 16 minimum rounds that we are supposed to chant, or we are not chanting them with quality. Yeah. Prabhupada didn't say chant 16 rounds. Prabhupada said chant minimum good 16 rounds, attentive rounds, right? So now think about how we chant. When we are chanting, we are probably walking and chanting. We are driving and chanting. We are cooking and chanting. We are talking and chanting. We are browsing the internet and chanting. 100 likes on my post. Yeah. But he got 150. What do I need to do next? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram. Maybe I have to post this picture. I cooked such massive meal, feast. Yeah. So we are multitasking and chanting. We are sometimes hearing a class and chanting. Sometimes we are reading something and chanting. Sometimes we are sleeping and chanting. If someone is chanting many, many rounds and they're constantly chanting, then no problem all day. You know, says Khaite Shoite Yatha Tatha Nam Jap. Nam Lai. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that you can eat and chant, you can sleep and chant. If one is constantly chanting, then irrespective of what our external circumstances or activities that we are doing and indulging in, that is okay. As because internally the tongue is chanting constantly, then there is no problem. It is not wrong to sleep and chant, drive and chant, provided we are chanting around the clock 24/7. We are bathing and chanting, we are cooking and chanting, we are walking and chanting, we are driving and chanting, we are sleeping and chanting, we are waking up and chanting, then no problem. But if we are chanting only 16 rounds every day, and those 16 rounds we are chanting while driving, while sleeping, while cooking, while talking, while dancing, while doing all these different activities, then what do you expect? So the first reason is why we could be spiritually weak, because the quality of our chanting is not good. Yeah. And the second reason that we could be spiritually weak is when we criticize others, especially criticize other Vaishnavas, either hearing or speaking. He did this, she did this, he said that, she said that. How can they speak about me like this behind my back? How can they act like in this manner? And this is just not amongst devotees, those who are practicing Vedic dharma. It's for everybody, for anybody. Because what does it do? Yeah, it just pollutes our own mind and pulls us into the activities and conversations that we are not supposed to waste time on. Of course, we will have questions because this is not a perfect world. Yeah. And even in devotional circles, in any community, you have devotees, you have others. Everybody is of different caliber at a different stage. And you will have those that have just come in for the first time to the temple. You'll have those who have been coming for a year, those who have been coming for 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's a wide spectrum. And to expect that everyone is to be pure at all the times is a fallacy of our own mind. Cannot happen. Not a perfect world. So we shouldn't expect it. But however, we should, even if someone has said something, yeah, or done something wrong against us, maybe there is, most of the times it is miscommunication, by the way. It is either miscommunication or it is misunderstanding that results into arguments or judgmental behavior towards one another. It's natural. We live in the material world, Baba. Nothing is perfect in this world. And then we get affected. We feel sad. Yeah. It is real. But instead of criticizing them, it is good to first think whether I was responsible. Did I have a role to play in this at all? If somebody has said something to us. And second, running it through some superior devotees, superior Vaishnavas, who are your well-wishers, who are your confidants, and running it by them. Hey, this is what I'm encountering. This is what I'm feeling. I don't want to criticize. They can help us. How can I see the whole situation in a Krishna conscious way? Then we can make advancement. Yeah. Reversals in life are guaranteed. In everybody's life are guaranteed. But criticizing the mediums of our past reactions is not intelligent, it is not devotional, and it is irrational. Yeah. There is difference between how Prahlad Maharaj or Draupadi or Gajendra face reversals and how we face reversals. This is why they are mentioned in Bhagavatam and we are not. Our example is not given by Sukadev Goswami. So this is the second reason why we could be feeling spiritually weak. And third, and the most common reason why we could be feeling weak is because we are not regularly reading books, all the wonderful books of Srila Prabhupada. Starting with these small books of Srila Prabhupada, and then coming to Bhagavad Gita in the back of the room, then coming to Srimad Bhagavatam. We're not reading them regularly. You see, anytime someone comes and says, I'm feeling spiritually weak, I don't feel inspired enough. First 1 to 3 years, one will feel very inspired, fired up, service, this, that, I want to do everything. But then, slowly, naturally, there is this state of stagnancy. Feeling of sluggishness sets in. And it's because of one of these 3 reasons. Of course, there are other reasons, but these are 3 primary reasons. Not chanting properly, not reading daily, and committing Vaishnava Aparadha. Yeah. So apart from that, there are other things also, like accepting food which is not prasad. You have heard the famous saying, it's we are what we eat. Yeah. So that is a very common reason also why there could be pollution in our consciousness. Amrendra Prabhu was mentioning about this instance that he was speaking with a devotee few weeks ago, a very senior devotee. And again, this example is more for inspirational purposes. It is not meant for us copying anybody or because this example is of a very high standard. Yeah, but it gives us inspiration. Yeah. So this senior devotee, he has a very strict vrat or a vow. Yeah. And it is something that we cannot potentially imitate. His vrata or his vow is that he will accept prasad only that which has been offered and tasted by his own deities. Yeah. By his own deities. Imagine. So one level is eating anything and everything we get. Yeah. Second level is that to understand no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. I will keep away from eggs and fish, etc. And then becoming vegetarian. Yeah. The third level is I will only accept prasad. Yeah. But his vrata is even higher, that he will not accept anything from anybody unless the prasad is offered to his own deities. Yeah. So another thought is that his thought is that why should I trouble anybody to make extra 4 rotis for me? Why should I trouble anybody? And his mood is wherever he goes, he serves prasad during prasadam time instead of sitting and honoring prasadam. He just serves prasad to others. Yeah. So that is a very high standard of maintaining one's regulation around honoring prasad. Yeah. So he was mentioning that a few weeks ago, this devotee was very troubled in his mind. And he was mentioning that his consciousness is so subtle and so sensitive because of this practice over the many years, that several months ago, for 1 week, he was very disturbed in his consciousness. And then he was introspecting, he was thinking, what happened? Like, did I eat something somewhere? Then he realized that one of the person who cooked for his deities was not chanting properly. Even somebody's consciousness, because we always say, when we are cooking for Krishna, when we are cooking bhoga to offer to Krishna, Our consciousness matters because our consciousness gets imbibed into what we are cooking. And that ultimately is what we are honoring, right? There was a movie many years ago. I was in college 20 years ago, and this movie was a documentary. Actually, it was not a movie. It was a documentary about some research that was done um, by scientists to study the effect of. Um, they had done many different researches. One of the sections of the documentary, which was about 5 minutes in this hour and a half documentary, was about them doing a study of Buddhist chants in a room, and they had kept water. Yeah, you all might have heard about this study also, and how with the vibration of the chants, the water clears out. It was not clean water, but the water clears out. And then they had put water in two containers, and one was not in the room, one was in the room, and the other one stayed exactly the same, didn't change. And the color of the water in the room, because of the positive energy in the room, it changed its color, it became more clearer. Yeah, so it was a very interesting study. So our consciousness matters when we are cooking. Yeah, so in this case, he was immediately disturbed in his consciousness. So accepting food anywhere and everywhere could be another reason, along with browsing the internet too much, watching sports, watching graphics on the internet that we're not supposed to, either news feeds in whatever form they come, they're all rajasic in nature. Yeah, watching movies, daily soaps, whatever telecasts on the television broadcasts, whatever. Yeah, those are all the activities we should try to avoid. Too much time on the Facebook. These are the things that lead to these bad impressions on our consciousness over time. Yeah, because our consciousness is not as sensitive as this devotee, we don't realize it. He realized it immediately, within a week. We don't realize it. For us, it takes time to affect, but those impressions stay. Has anybody have had an experience when you have watched something and you dream about it later on, and then you feel like, why am I dreaming like this? Yeah, why? Because it's proven. It's given in Bhagavad Gita. If you have Bhagavad Gita in front of you, open 241, chapter 2, verse number 41. What does it say? Who can read 241? Yes. Yeah. We have a Satmika Buddhir. Consciousness, if it becomes multi-branched, there is no focus. Yeah. It's clearly given. There is no use of such intelligence. Actually, we are wasting our intelligence. So another reason why one can feel spiritually weak is improper schedule. Sleeping at any time, waking up at any time. Yeah. Now, naturally, when we go off to sleep late in the night, we end up waking late also, right? We have many devotees here that wake up early morning to chant their rounds. At 5 o'clock, we all get on a Zoom call and we chant. Personally, I don't get on a Zoom call, but we still chant in the morning. Yeah. So we can encourage each other to spend time, chant together, those who are not regulated in their morning sadhana time. So it's natural, because the body needs, if we sleep late, we wake up late, because body needs 6 to 7 hours of sleep. Yeah. So let's say the screen activity is till 11 in the night, or 11:30 or 12 midnight, and then one has to rest because all day they are busy. So waking up time would probably be 6:30, whatever it is. So the morning time, which is meant for bhajan, for bhakti, is lost. So this, if it is not done over a long period of time, it brings in spiritual weakness. Yeah, 100%. His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj says that If someone wants to make advancement, then one has to utilize the time between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning, not in the evening, in the morning. Somebody might think, oh, Maharaj said 4 to 8. Yes, very nice. Now, I don't have to cook in the evening. I don't have to take care of anything else. I have to do my bhajan from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. No, 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Yeah. So, I mean, this, now there are two thoughts here. Huh? What Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj says, and there is another example, which is again a very high aspirational example. But nonetheless, let's discuss it. And then we can decide which one is better for you to choose, including me. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says something even more interesting. Inspiring also, but interesting. He explains we have 25 hours in a day. Do we have 25? 24. 24 hours? He says that we have 24 hours in the day, and he divides it into 3 different equal halves, parts. Not halves, parts. He says 8 hours are for the body, 8 hours are for our profession, and 8 hours are for Krishna. Huh? So let's think about it. Now, 8 hours for the body meaning what? Let's say we sleep for about 6.5 hours. Then we are left with about 1.5 hours to fit in our meals, maybe 3 meals, maybe 2 meals, bathing, brushing, shaving, all things that come with the body. Yeah. That's 8 hours done for us in the day, including anything related to yeah. And then the other 8 hours for profession include traveling time. Yeah. So he says if it's more than 8 hours, now listen carefully, those of you who travel to work. If it is more than 8 hours for your profession, it is ugra karma. Okay. It is unnecessary. And then he says it's 8 hours for bhakti, for bhajan. Now, 8 hours of bhakti meaning for Bhakti Vinod Thakur standard what? 6 hours for 64 rounds. So yesterday, many of us were chanting 64 rounds. We started at 5:30. Some of us finished at 11:30 or noon. Others a little later. Those who took break in between. So then in the 2 hours, remaining 2 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours is for bhajan, chanting, japa, 64 rounds. And then 2 hours you hear Harikatha, you serve the deities. And let's say you keep, we can decide now. So we can choose the Bhakti Vinod Thakur route, or we can choose Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj route. Which one is preferable? Yeah. 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. and 8 hours in the day, preferably in the morning. Yeah. So you can decide that way. So let's say you keep 4 hours for chanting, 5 hours for chanting, something like that. Remaining 3 hours or 4 hours associating with devotees, reading, hearing, serving the deities, etc. Yeah. So this is his standard. Of course, we can see that as an ideal standard, but try to go as close as we can to it without cheating ourselves. Yeah. On the pretext of what is practical for us. The target is very high, but if we don't have targets, we don't aspire to achieve those targets. We always have targets in life. We have goals. Anybody here who is aimless, goalless, targetless in anything that we do in our lives? No. We all have goals. They might be related to our home, they might be related to our profession, it might be related to our family situations. We all have goals. But the target for us as devotees is what? It is Krishna Prema. Yeah? That is the target. It is not a joke. It is not an algorithm that you can just run through step A, then step B, then step C, and then we get Krishna Prema. No, it doesn't happen like that. Yeah? Or does it? It is not a Pythagoras theorem. You do X, D, prove this out, then you go here, then you're done. In the end, we got the right answer. We are successful, 100 out of 100. Life doesn't work like that. Yeah? Why? Because Krishna is Swarat. He is independent. It's possible you can run through all the algorithmic steps, And Krishna may say, well, he doesn't put his heart into anything. So go back. No entry today. Yeah. So he doesn't put his heart. So I will not give my heart to him either. Yeah. So and this is one of my favorite verses in entire Bhagavad Gita. And it comes in chapter 9. I think 927. Can anybody pull? 927? No. No, then there's a different one. So that is also one of my favorites. But Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. 10. 10? 10 8. 10 8. Got confused there. So Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. Yeah. Only 4 things to remember, my dear friends. Only 4 things. Number 1, Krishna is the source of everything. Krishna is the source, no one else is the source. Krishna is the source. This is the first point to remember. And because he is the source, nobody else can be the source. Not any other demigod. Krishna is the source, not the human, not any other demigod, nobody else. Even the other Vishnu Murtis come from Krishna. Explained very clearly. That is the first point. The second point is, because he is the source, everything must come from him, not from anybody else. Yeah? Which means all the happiness that I have in my life comes from him. All the reversals that I am facing comes from him. Thank you, Krishna. Yeah? Nobody is causing any harm to me because they are not the source. Who is the source? Krishna is the source. How beautiful. Yeah? And this is how we study the verses of Bhagavad Gita. Then Bhagavad Gita starts opening up. It is not just memorizing a verse. Practical, real solutions in life. It's one thing to memorize the verse, but it's one thing to decipher and decode the deeper hidden meanings of a verse in Bhagavad Gita. So, Krishna is the source, nobody else is the source. Everything comes from him. This phone comes from him. This laptop comes from him. The microphone comes from him. The elements through which these things are made, they come from him. The person who is putting all of this together with intelligence, that person along with his intelligence and ability comes from him. Yeah? So all circumstances come from him. Birth comes from him. Death comes from him. Old age comes from him. Therefore, because we love him and we want to serve him and we accept that's why we accept all of his decisions. Therefore, whatever comes from him is going to be auspicious for me because it is for my well-being, whether I can understand it or not. Krishna clearly says to Arjuna, because you are my friend and my devotee. He doesn't say that because you are my friend and you are my neighbor. Or he doesn't say that because I saw you on the battlefield, I really like your chariot and that's why I'm on here. No. He's very clear that I am your well-wishing friend. Krishna is talking to us through Arjuna. How beautiful. Yeah. So understanding these 3, and then the step 3, the first 2, then the step 3 is Bhajante Mam. We must perform bhakti. Yeah. Remember him. Chant his names. And the 4th, most important step is we must worship him with all our heart. With all our heart. Not through the tongue, not doing the lip service, not just looking at the deity and coming to the temple and just paying our obeisances. If it is not done with our heart, it does not matter. When we perform the arti, has to be done from the heart. When we chant the holy name, when we chant our japa, when we do kirtan, When we listen to Krishna Katha, it has to be all from the heart. If the heart is not there, the benefit is diminished. It's very little. It is there, but it is very little, because Krishna is Swarat. So we have to try to manage our schedule like that. If it is irregular, if the sleep is disturbed, if the schedule is disturbed, then we are not getting our goal. Yeah. To get into an Ivy League school, or to get into any prestigious institution, or to work for a very well-known employer, there has to be a high level of discipline. I know many students in our community outside who study for months and months, try to take an exam so they can get a good score, so they can go to a good college. I know at least 2 individuals who wanted to get into working for Amazon. They studied and prepared for that interview, which they never even got, for 8 months in advance, 8 to 10 months, regularly doing mock interviews with current Amazon employees, because the jobs they wanted had very difficult criteria for selection. Not knowing that when they applied, they would even get an interview, but they were studying for it. Why? Because they had a goal. Yeah. So to get to our goal of Krishna Prema, there has to be a high level of discipline, is it not? Can someone who is not disciplined get into army or air force or navy? They have rigorous and intense training. In my college days, there was a guy, Western bodied. He really wanted to join the police department. This guy was overweight, and he went to apply for the application. His application was not even selected. And they told him because of his weight situation. He was overweight by almost 72 pounds, 70, 75 pounds, something like that. Albany, where we lived, is a very cold place, 8 months of the year. 6 months of the year, easy, you have snow or ice on the ground. But he was determined. He would go running early in the morning every single day for 90 minutes, no matter if it was raining, snowing, cold, heat. He would go every single day. In the next year, when the time came around, he had shed 60 pounds. They let him apply and gave him a challenge because they saw how hard he worked. After he graduated from college, he joined the academy because of his discipline. Now, for good or for worse, I will not go into details what happened to him afterwards, because after he joined the police force, 2.5 years later, because of the situations he saw serving in the police, the stress they went through, the trauma they went through, one day while taking a shower in his apartment, he fell in the bathroom, became unresponsive. He was awake. He was taking a hot bath, hot steam shower. And he was supposed to report to work at 9 a.m. He didn't show up. At 9:20, the police department, where they were expecting him, got worried. They immediately sent 2 of his peers to look on him at his apartment. They saw that the door was locked from inside, not outside. They broke the door. They went inside, and they found him in the bathtub, burns all over his body because of hot water. He fell in that bathtub and could not get up. His body became unresponsive, but his mind and eyes were awake, like he could see what's happening, but he couldn't move. So no matter what passion we have in our life, we have goals, and we strive hard to achieve them. We train hard to achieve them. I currently work, those of you who know what I do in my profession, I currently run a $200 million business for my company worldwide. And the company that we recently bought, my company paid $2 billion to buy that company. And the CEO of that company was recently replaced by another IBMer. I work for IBM. And this lady, this is a lady. We talk about equality. It doesn't get better than this, right? She's an acting CEO of this company. And I'll tell you what her credentials are. She is a 3-star general in US Army. A 3-star general. She commandeered her own ship of army for months at sea. She has served in all the various places in the Middle East over the last 15 years. She visits Pentagon every week, and every morning she is first on the security briefings of national security before she comes to IBM. Yeah. How do you think she got to these positions? Just because she came from a family that had her father was in military? No. It was determination. It was grit. It took an effort to become even a 1-star general in US Army is not a simple, easy feat. Yeah. She's a 3-star general. And she's probably only 10 years older to me. Yeah. So you see how intense our training needs to be to achieve what we want in life. One is trained in such a way in military or army or navy that they can crawl, they can run through fire. They can be empty stomach for days. They can survive just by breaking ice and drinking that water that's in the mountains if they're serving at higher altitudes. They can sneak through any circumstances. They can fight. That's how their mindset is. That's how their character is built over time. Yeah. Armless, legless, headless, until they will fight if they are in a war zone. Yeah. So if this is the spirit of the army of one country, what to speak of the army of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when the army is fighting against the material nature or Maya, yeah, or the agents of Kali. Those who have watched Matrix, you can relate how intense our training needs to be. Yeah. So His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj is saying that morning time is for Krishna. Unrestricted. No phone, no talking. There is actually a very, very inspiring sadhu in Gaudiya Math, and he's a disciple of Sri Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, who's the godbrother of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. And this sadhu, this sannyasi, he chants 64 rounds every single day, starting at 2 o'clock in the morning. Starting at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's chanting and he's sitting in one asana, no walking, no running and chanting, nothing. Sitting in one place in front of his Tulsi Devi, just sitting and chanting from 2 o'clock in the morning to whatever time, it takes, 7 o'clock or 7:30, whatever. Until then, his norm is not a drop of water, not one grain of prasad, not looking at phone, not talking one word to anyone. Think about how intense this practice is. Yeah. So we may not be able to chant, or we may not be able to sit in one position to chant 64 rounds because, we are grastas and we're not like brahmacharis or whatever, sannyasis or whatever, right? But the point is, it's not about imitation. It's taking a drop of inspiration. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his work, he says, after reading the life of Dhruva Maharaj, I don't feel I am a devotee. I don't even think I am a devotee, he says. Why? Because Dhruva Maharaj was ready to stand on one leg, chanting his mantras. He was ready to give up eating for the sake of chanting his mantras for Vishnu. He was ready to give up even breathing just to focus on the Supreme Lord. What an intense level of focus and dedication is that? Rupa Goswami says, I cannot do that. And we are all called what? Rupanugas. We are the followers of Rupa Goswami. Says, I can't do that. And Dhruva Maharaj did all that. For whom? For Vaikuntha. He wanted Vaikuntha. Yeah? And we are aspiring for Vrindavan in the service of Radha and Krishna. And what happens when Dhruva Maharaj is aspiring for Vaikuntha? But he got Vaikuntha. He, yes, yeah, exactly. He was aspiring for the kingdom. So father's love. Why is Arjuna glorified? Why is Arjuna glorified? Because he had the focus. What did he see when he went to the Swayambar of Draupadi? The eye of the fish. What did he see in the bushes when Dronacharya asked him to pierce? The eye of the bird. That was his focus. Yeah. So he is glorified for his focus. 241 Bhagavad Gita. We cannot afford to waste the precious time we have been given in this human form of life. We are just blowing candles and cutting cakes, wishing ourselves happy birthday every year. Yeah. But the serious devotee is thinking, has my bhajan deepened from the last time I cut this cake, which was last year? Yeah. We can all get together. Happy birthday to you. Yeah. Clap, take prasad, eat cake, be happy. But we lost another year of our precious life we have been given in this body. So if we cannot reflect that how my bhajan has deepened since the last time I cut the cake, then it's a problem. And when we think about how my bhajan is going, how my days are being passed, no time to see who is doing what, because it's an ocean inside, then it works. And when the person becomes very sensitive to their bhakti, their practice, then whenever they say something which is not in line of bhakti, let's say someone is criticizing somebody else, and the person, instead of stopping that person or leaving that place, if even says, yeah, you know what, Prabhu, I think maybe you're right. Even if that's just a simple agreement that maybe you're right, our consciousness will make us burn after the fact. Why did I even say that? Because our consciousness is subtle. We just discussed, it's a part of our subtle body. Yeah. Like a fabric, what happens when you drop ink on it? The spot is left. Yeah. It doesn't go away. So like that, our consciousness is like that. It absorbs everything negative also. Negative impressions remain longer than positives most of the times. Yeah. So when our consciousness is covered, we will gossip, we'll sing film songs, right? Or other songs, whatever today are going around, right? And feel that, because that's how clouded our consciousness is. But by sincere practice, everyday fixed yuktahara viharasya, Krishna has given guidelines. Yeah, Krishna has given guidelines in Bhagavad Gita, and this is what we were saying: bhava samanvitaha. 4 things. He is the source, and therefore everything comes from him. All the good comes from him, and I'm not making any money. He is giving me all the money. I'm not a self-made man. He has made me. Dukkha is in my life not because of my spouse. He or she is a medium of my heart. He or she is just the medium of your heart. You know, it's not your spouse, but it could be anyone. Like, it's not just that person. It could be anybody. It's just not your immigration is giving you dukkha. No. It's not your neighbor. It's not the people you know. It's not just my health. It's my reactions coming through these different ways from the past, what I have done. So putting a finger on somebody and blaming somebody for your own misery is the biggest sign of our unintelligence nature. You have to understand, everything is signed, sanctioned, and approved by Krishna. Nothing is happening without his sanction. Good, bad, ugly. But for a devotee, everything is accepted as a blessing. I welcome it. I still continue to worship him with all my heart. So, morning time, let's give full energy to japa. No talking, no looking at the phone, no eating. Maybe we can have a bottle of water next to us just to sip when the throat gets dry because of thirst. But to sit in one place with closing our eyes, not speaking anything except Krishna Nam, hearing the holy name, being absorbed, mind will distract us. Mind will say, see how many rounds you are left. You can see, take out your beads. How much of this round is left? Yeah? Does it happen? And then put them in the bag. Yeah? Mind will say, I'm sleepy. Let me sleep for 10 more minutes and I'll wake up. Maybe 30 more minutes. Yeah? And I may be sleepy. So if we are steadfast in our focus, I will stand up and I will chant. I may be feeling sleepy. I'll go wash my face with cold water again and come back and sit and chant. I remember growing up, when we used to have exams, and I would tell my mom or dad that I'm sleepy. I can't study anymore. They will say, you're not done preparing yet. Why don't you go wash your face and come back and study? Mom and dad, they would do that to encourage children. Like they are also worried. Child is worried. I'm not done preparing for my exam. Okay, this is the easiest thing. To wake yourself up, take some cold water and splash it on your face. Yeah. So discipline is needed in everything. In ISKCON, this wonderful, wonderful institution, and the body, mind, and soul of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. We need to treat ISKCON as our university, Prabhupada as our chancellor or our president, and the principal. Yeah. The spiritual masters that we have, they are the professors. Chanting the holy name is our curriculum. Yeah. And Prabhupada's books are the reference books to study. And the life we have is an examination. So if we put all this together, then we will pass the final exam, then when we are presented with it at the moment of death. If any of these elements are missing, cycle and more dukkha and blaming the spouse will happen. And the devotees around you, if you look around you, they are all your classmates. Yeah. We're all together in this. So just hanging around this university doesn't graduate us, sorry to say. We have to study these books. We have to chant our japa nicely, minimum 16 rounds every day clearly. So every syllable we pronounce is being listened, not running through it, not going very slow also. Chanting at a pace that we are able to focus and hear. The focus should not be on so much that just shaking our head and no. Yeah. Not just having a motion. It's not a commotion. It is about going deeper, sitting there absorbed, closing our eyes. Because when the eyes are open, then the thoughts of various kinds, the to-do lists, all seep through the window of the mind. The fan is on, the light bulb needs to be changed. I have to do this and that today. Oh, I have to go here. He said that, she said this. No. Shut all that out. Eyes off, ears on, mouth except Harinam off. Yeah? No smelling anything, just sitting in seclusion and chanting. And at least 30 minutes of reading Prabhupada's books every single day must be done. If we don't read, then we will go weak. Guaranteed. That is also guaranteed. There is a lot of things that are guaranteed in Krishna consciousness. Going weak is also guaranteed. Yeah. If we don't read, we will go weak. The point is, we don't value Srila Prabhupada's enough. Because if we did, we would read. I'll finish off with a story. I had a lot more content, but I'll finish off with a story about Srila Prabhupada because I think it is very inspirational. How many of you have been to Krishna Balram Mandir in Vrindavan? Few of you. So, you might, if you have ever been to Krishna Balram Mandir and you've been to the place where Srila Prabhupada used to stay, behind his room is a garden. And in the garden, there is a fountain. So one time Srila Prabhupada had come to Krishna Balram Mandir, and 1960, trying to think, 66, 67 maybe? No, 75. I'm getting my ears, 70s. It was not even there then. 75, 76, something like that. So Prabhupada came there, and all the devotees were waiting for Srila Prabhupada to come. So they had planned that when Srila Prabhupada comes, we will have around the clock people designated for his service. And so somebody would be there from 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, like that. So somebody's shift was from 1 to 4 in the morning, yeah, after midnight. So this person thought, Prabhupada, if Prabhupada needs anything, I should be available. So this person said, okay, I will not be sitting outside the room. I will stay behind Prabhupada's room where, there's a window, and I can quietly be there, and I could pay attention to if Prabhupada wakes up. If he needs something, I can quickly go and I can address his needs. So he came to his shift at 1 a.m. in the morning, and Prabhupada's room, the light in Prabhupada's room was off. He was sleeping. So Prabhupada, at 10 minutes after his shift began, at 1:10 a.m., Prabhupada's the light in Prabhupada's room turned on. And he was like, who is in Prabhupada's room? Then he noticed Prabhupada got up and he started walking towards his bathroom. Prabhupada took a shower, put on his tilak, and came out. And Prabhupada picked up his japa beads and started chanting. And after 10-15 minutes of chanting, Prabhupada sat down and took his dictaphone, and he started dictating into the dictaphone. That's how all the books that we have were compiled. Prabhupada used to tape record them, and then they used to be transcribed. Yeah. So, so then Prabhupada dictated for about 7, 8, 10 minutes, and then Prabhupada turned it off. And then Prabhupada went and picked up Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the commentaries of other acharyas, and he read through some of that. Then he put them back. He came back, he picked up the dictaphone, and he started recording again. So he again recorded for 7-8 minutes, and again he stopped recording. He picked up his beads again, and he started chanting. So this went on for next 45 minutes or so, like this. And this person is standing outside, and he's observing, and he's getting this inner view into how Prabhupada's books are compiled, because he's seeing that Prabhupada was chanting and reading before dictating anything to get inspiration himself from Krishna. Yeah. And then he would dictate something. It was not like Prabhupada would sit and in one go he is dictating the whole book and his purports. That's not how it was done. But it was done in this manner. Prabhupada would read the Shastra, the commentary from other acharyas. He would read his own previous translations also. He would chant to get that Shakti. And then he would go and dictate into that dictaphone. So while seeing all this, now Prabhupada could not see outside, it's pitch dark, but this person can see inside. Yeah. And he's seeing this, and he's getting more and more excited. Yeah. And outside earlier, when Prabhupada was sleeping, he had just started chanting his japa. This devotee had just started chanting his japa. And now when he's seeing this, he kept coming closer and closer to see. Think about this, right? When you have a very important person who means a lot in your life, and that person is right in front of you, but you are not in close proximity to talk to them, you observe. And you observe with a lot of curiosity, with a lot of love, right? To see, what this person is doing. What are the inner workings of this person's daily life? And Prabhupada's life was like that. All the devotees would observe, right? He's the Acharya. Now, when that happened, as he was chanting over the next 30-40 minutes, he got so absorbed and so excited to learn the inner workings of Prabhupada's way of writing these books. His whispering, even less than whispering of his japa, actually became very intense. So he started like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram. Like he was like feeling so much ecstasy watching Prabhupada. And when that happened, all of a sudden, Prabhupada looked at him from the window. And then because Prabhupada heard him chant, so he was like, oh, Prabhupada heard me. So, but again, the pastime is that, Prabhupada would refer back to the commentaries of Jiva Goswami, Sridhar Swami, yeah, and get inspiration to write his purports to all these shastras, and translating all these shastras from Sanskrit to English. One small one, the same devotee was also in New York. When Prabhupada came to New York one time, and those of you have been to 26 2nd Avenue, you can see there is hardly 30 people who can fit in that room. Those who have never been to 26 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, that is the place where the first ISKCON temple started in the world. It was a storefront. It was a storefront with a sign on the top which read, "Matchless Gift." The matchless gift that Srila Prabhupada gave to this world, that sign still hangs. And in that storefront, there's not a whole lot of space. Hardly 30 people can fit. And there were 300 people when Prabhupada came. They were sitting in each other's lap. They were outside around the footpath. They were sitting in the stairs. Yeah. And after Prabhupada gave the class, and there was Q&A, the question and answer session. And when anybody would ask a question, Prabhupada would answer, and he would say, go to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter this, verse number X. Go to Ishopanishad, verse number this. Go to Bhagavad Gita, chapter this, verse number that, purport, right? So Prabhupada would always give a reference when he would answer a question. So this devotee was thinking that the mercy of all our acharyas is flowing through Prabhupada's lips into that dictaphone, through his japa, because we are not as pure, through his japa, through his shakti, into what's being transcribed, into all these books. The only thing I have to do is pick up these books and read. That is all I have to do. This is why it is so important. Prabhupada always stressed on the fact to the devotees, please read my books. Everything is there. If you want to know Srila Prabhupada, you read his purports. There is no other version of Bhagavad Gita that is as circulated in the world as Bhagavad Gita as it is. And those of us who look at the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, or 18,000 of Bhagavatam, and we get scared that where to start. I can't read this. They're small books, 90 pages, 100 pages, 60 pages. And if these are very small. If you read 3 pages of a book every day, it will take 5 to 8 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. In 1 month, you will finish one book of 90 pages. Yeah. So once we can finish all the small books, then we can pick up Bhagavad Gita. And we have study groups. There are ladies who study every day, read together every day in our community. There are other groups outside of that where on Saturdays devotees meet and they study Bhagavad Gita. So all the facilities are made available to us. If we don't take advantage of that, it is our loss. You can bring a horse to the well, you cannot make the horse drink the water. All the facilities are there. It is up to us if we can make a schedule, a discipline in our schedule of daily life, and incorporate either the 4-hour option or the 8-hour option. Bhakti Vinod Thakur or Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj? Yeah, 4 and 8 hours. Those who came late, they won't understand the joke, but that was the two options. So with that, I will pause. Thank you very much. If anybody has any comments or question, happy to take a few. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
I just do what I can and get by. And my second part of the question is, I understand, going to a Harvard University, you have to prepare, going to whatever, whichever college or getting into Army, becoming a general, they all work for Amazon, takes all preparations and all that. So material, just to achieve a material objective, you're devoting so much time.